Hi guys, Lisa here of Borderlands Bakery here today, and I'm sharing my recipe for piped butter cookies. And these are a very delicious, simple cookie base, and my dad really likes the plain butter cookies, so I'm going to make this as a part of my Christmas cookie crate and send it off to a bunch of different people that I love. I love this recipe because aside from being a super easy to put together dough, it's relatively quick to make, and you can make a couple of really slight modifications and get a bunch of different flavor profiles. So I've got some of these that I put some chocolate on the back, kind of just dripped it on and let it kind of cool on the baking sheet. You can leave them just piped plain. You can also pipe them in a circle and put some jam in the middle or sandwich them. Endless possibilities. So come along with me and I'll show you how I made them. So before we get started, I'm going to go over all the equipment that you're going to need to make the cookies today. First thing you're going to want to have is a food scale. Everything that you measure by weight is going to be more consistent, more precise in the long run, especially if you're trying to reproduce recipes over and over again. The volume measurements are just not very precise or consistent. Depending on how much your ingredients have settled, it could be a different amount each time. I will drop a link in our blog post where we talk about volumetric versus weighted measurements. I'm also going to need a mixing bowl and a spatula. We're actually going to be doing the batter by hand using these things today. And I'm also going to have two disposable piping bags with me. These are 12-inch piping bags. What's gonna happen is we're gonna double them up because our batter is going to be quite thick and stiff. I don't want any bags exploding on me. If you've got a thicker plastic bag, that would be great. If you have those disposable ones, not disposable ones, those reusable ones, that would be great as well. I'm going to be doubling mine up because they are quite thin. They're the type that we offer on our website, generally used as tipless piping bags for piping royal icing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one bag inside the other and drop a tip in. I'm using a Wilton 1M tip. It's very commonly used for cupcakes, big pretty swirls, and it's going to be perfect for making rosettes for our butter cookies and any other shapes that you might desire. As far as ingredients goes, these butter cookies are very, very simple. You're going to need a nice butter. I love Kerrygold and I do use the salted butter. Usually to balance out the sweetness in desserts, I add some salt anyway, and just having some of that butter salted seems to work perfectly well for me. So I use, this is 2 American sticks, also known as 8 ounces of butter. You want to let this butter come down to room temp, but not too warm. You want it to be cool enough so that it still holds its shape, and when you put your finger into it and you pull out, there's going to be an indent, but it's not going to be too oily, and you definitely don't want it so warm that the butter has melted and pooled around the outer edges. I'm also going to be using powdered sugar. All the measurements are going to be down below in the video as well as in my blog post, so no worries. And I'm going to be using all-purpose flour. I will also have vanilla bean paste as my flavor. You can also optionally use vanilla extract or something else. If you want to use if you want to make like a coffee-based butter cookie, you can add some instant coffee to it. It's absolutely delicious. I'm also going to be using a sieve today. This is just to make sure that I can sift my dry ingredients to get out all the clumps. We are going to be mixing by hand, and we want to make sure the dough is as smooth as possible. Alright, so first thing I want to do is weigh out my dry ingredients. Once you've done this like once or twice, you don't have to weigh them out separately. You can weigh them directly into the bowl that you're working with. But for now and for the sake of demos, we're going to weigh them and keep them separate so that it's easier to show you how to do this. Kerrygold. Look, the butter is magically there. Tessa? What's your sister doing? Dogs are being cute. And by that I mean being crazy. While you're waiting for your butter to come to room temperature, one of the things you can do to prep is to get your icing bag ready. So we are doubling it up. I had this bag on the outside last time, and I'm gonna also keep it on the outside this time. It had already been cut. The way I like to prep my bags is I take my tip and I slide it in the bag. Make sure the tip is not getting dragged down the sides of the bag in any way, or else it'll affect the structural integrity, cause potential premature tears and stuff in the bag. So here I'm just trying to figure out where to cut, so I'm kind of fitting it, pushing it back out, trimming it, and then reassessing. And I think that's going to be fine because we're going to be applying a lot of pressure and it's going to come out a little bit more. And then I'm going to be putting it in my bag, my second bag, to double it up and make it more strong. Same thing, being careful. And that way you're going to be filling the inner bag. I like to put my hand in here and just get it real smash down there. And then get yourself a tall glass or something like that. You can use like, all right. I have this like blender cup thingy. And when you are ready with the batter, you're actually only gonna fill it about halfway. Otherwise, you're gonna have no strength squeezing the batter out because it is, again, a very, very stiff batter. So now you've got your icing bag prepped. I'm gonna wait for my butter to come down to room temp, probably another half an hour or so. And then I'll show you what it looks like when it's ready. And then we'll get started. So we're just about ready to make these cookies, and you know your butter is done when you press into it, and it's not very hard to kind of push through the block of butter. And when you release it, it's not oily, it's still relatively a solid. So this is exactly where we want it to be. This is when we can start working with it. And a little tip here, I like to put a slightly wet kitchen towel or something like that to help me with a little bit of grip so that my bowl is not sliding all over the place. So I just wet it both sides. I'm gonna wet it right now. Both sides, nice and wet, so that we get less slippage because we're going to be doing all of this by hand. So the first thing you want to do is break up that butter, and we're going to mix it until it gets nice, smooth, and creamy. And this can take a little bit of time. You can kind of see how I'm just breaking it up into chunks right now. Smash it around until it becomes almost like spreadable butter. That's the texture we're looking for. And you don't want it to warm up too much during this or melt into a liquid. So you can also do this in a stand mixer or use a hand mixer if you'd like. I am choosing to not use any equipment today because I want anybody to be able to do this. So it's gonna take some time and some muscle to work the butter until it's nice, smooth, and spreadable. And just keep smashing it down. You wanna make sure you have quite a robust spatula for this part. And eventually, as you work it, it's going to become easier to work with as it warms up a little bit more from all that friction. So keep going. This part takes about 5 minutes. No worries, take your time. After this, everything's gonna come together very quickly. So I just wanna make sure all the butter is quite spreadable. We're just not quite there yet. We have some chunks still in here. You can tell when it's ready. when the butter feels like very thick batter. My puppies are drinking in the background. That's what that lapping sound is. All right, so now it's relatively all smooth and more like spreadable butter. We're ready to sift in that powdered sugar. Grab your sieve and your powdered sugar, and we're going to sift this in so that there are no more clumps. Got some last bits here. I just put my hand through it and help it out a little bit until everything is through. Now we're going to combine that powdered sugar and butter, and I'm kind of going to use very gentle motions at first to get that powdered sugar incorporated. I just don't want it getting everywhere. So I'm kind of like slicing through the butter, going around and kind of smashing it down. Around, slice or smash it down. I slice to begin and then I smash it down. Use this to incorporate our powdered sugar and butter. And again, this part's going to take a little time as well. But we're also looking for the texture to become very smooth and creamy. You can kind of see that the sugar is getting more incorporated. And it's starting to get smoothed out. We want to get to the point where it looks super smooth and all the sugar is incorporated. And we are almost there. At this point, we can add the vanilla extract or vanilla bean paste. I'm going to use vanilla bean paste here, and I'm just going to about eyeball it. That's a fun noise. All right, I'm going to get that combined, and then we'll see if we need to add more. The vanilla paste or vanilla extract will add a tiny bit of moisture to the batter, which is great because we want to loosen it up just a little bit. Now you can tell it is much easier to stir, and at first it might look a little goopy and as if it won't combine, but keep going. It will, I guess, emulsify? I don't know the correct term for it. Just want to make sure that you get all the butter incorporated and mixed in with the nice vanilla bean paste or extract, whatever you're using. You want to make sure that all this butter that hasn't been incorporated is, and I just smash it around the side of the bowl to kind of get it off the spatula. And keep smashing. And you'll notice that as you work with it, the batter will loosen up. I'm going to add a little bit more. You can even combine vanilla and almond extracts for a very pleasant flavor. I think that should be enough. Give it a good mix. Just going back and forth, being really quite rough with it at this point. All right, this is about done. I would say this almost feels like a buttercream. It's a denser buttercream is how I would describe it. I got a couple of other bits in here that aren't quite combined, so we're just gonna do that. And you can kind of just leave it like that in the bowl, and we're gonna sift in our flour next. All right, so next we're going to sift in our all-purpose flour, and I'm just going to add it all at once. Help the chunks get fed through. And now we're going to fold and combine. Incorporating flour is the same as when we incorporate our powdered sugar. It's more gentle at the beginning so that we don't get our flour everywhere. And then we can start kind of smashing it down around and then smash it down to help it get incorporated. We're looking to just have everything evenly combined. So it's gonna feel like scoopable cookie dough when it's done. It's really quite stiff. Okay, almost everything is combined. My arm feels like it's gonna break off. This is a part where it would have been nice to use the stand mixer, but being stubborn and just not using the equipment. All right, everything looks pretty well combined actually. Very little pockets of butter and our flour left. So next thing you wanna do is load your piping bag. So remember I talked about how I doubled this up and it's been loaded. We're going to only load it, ooh, my bad. We're going to only load it about halfway. That way we have more power squeezing it because this is a very, very thick dough. All right, so you can always add more later. You can use a pastry scraper to kind of squeegee the batter down. And I'm just going to work with this much at a time. So I'm gonna twist it, and I'm gonna have to use the force of both hands. This is my dominant hand, my right hand. My left hand is on top, keeping it secure, twisted, and my right hand is going to be doing the guiding of my piping. Meet me back here with a baking sheet. So the key to getting a nice bake on these guys is to make sure that all the cookies that you pipe on your one baking sheet that you're gonna put in are relatively about the same shape and or size that allows for a more even bake so you get the same uniform texture across all the cookies. Now, you can still do some fun things flavor-wise even though you're making them all approximately the same shape and size, and I'm gonna show you right now. All right, so the way that you hold the piping bag is non-dominant hand on top, dominant hand on the bottom. This is bolstering it, preventing anything from squeezing back out on the top, and this is the one that's actually doing most of the work, guiding it. So if we are going to be making rosettes, for example, because those are easy and consistent to start with, you're gonna be squeezing quite a bit. And if you feel like you want to get most of it in your right hand, you can kind of grab. Make sure you touch down so the batter has something to adhere to, and really give it a good, very even squeeze. You can take a break. And then you can kind of release pressure and cut it off, adjusting it if needed, and then you get this nice little rosette. And now I'm gonna keep going. Again, grabbing most of that batter in one hand, touch down, even pressure, release pressure, and kind of allow it to taper off. That one's a little bit bigger than this one. I'm gonna try to do better on this guy. There we go. Give it a little room because they are going to spread a little bit. You can see that one, I didn't kind of touch down on that side, so it tried to follow me. The batter tried to follow me. All right, so now we're coming down to like the last cookie that I'll be able to pipe with this one-handed thing. So I'm going to refill, cutting it really close. There we go, we got one more out of it. I'm gonna refill my, sorry, just spilled something, my piping bag by opening it up again. Best I can. Actually, I'm just gonna hold it in my hand for this refill because I think I'm gonna be able to squeegee more batter off of it. So I just rolled the sides down with my hand. Put more batter in there. Oops, making a mess. Don't mind me. Get my handy dandy squeegee. And if there's an air bubble here, right here, and it's gonna cause some of that batter to ooze out, no big deal, just put it back in the bowl. We can always use it again later. But I think this is the hardest part about butter cookies, is the piping part. Okay. We should be good. Let's continue. Oh, you just heard the air bubble release. I didn't do a very good job spacing this row over here. So what you can do is I'm gonna pop these in the freezer because we gotta do that anyway while we're preheating our oven and to bring the temp down of these guys, and I'm gonna move them. But I'm gonna try something here. Oh, look at that, look at that. Okay, okay, you can be gentle and like kind of move the cookies around. I don't know if I would suggest doing that necessarily, but I just did it, and it's not gonna be absolutely perfect, but it works. More on that one. I'm gonna come around on this side to make it easier for myself. All right, I'm gonna refill again, finish this all up, and I'll see you back here. Right after piping them, there are several ways you can decorate them. You can put some sprinkles on here and they'll bake right in. Very festive, very easy, and if you wanna just give it a nice press to make sure that they actually get in there, that's okay. Otherwise, as they bake, they'll kind of get absorbed. Otherwise, we could also create a little hole or indent in one of these guys with a little butter knife and add in some jam. And as that bakes, it's going to kind of cook the jam a little bit more. And it's like a thumbprint butter cookie thingy. All right, so that's going to be quite great and a good fruity variety. And then the other ones I'm going to drizzle or dip in chocolate or a sandwich. These are gonna go in the freezer I'm gonna let them come down in temp. I'm gonna kind of redistribute the spacing on these because they're not quite even. And when they're frozen, they're a lot easier to move around. So preheat your oven right now. Put these into the freezer for about 20 minutes and then they'll be ready to bake. So these just came out from the freezer and they're a lot easier to handle. The jelly is still jellified, but I'm just going to kind of space them out a little more evenly. And then I will pop them in my preheated oven and rotate them just about halfway so that they have an even bake. So this is what they look like about halfway through the bake. They have spread a little bit, the butter has pulled around just a tad, but no worries. It's going to solidify and set up quite nicely. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and rotate my sheet so that we get an even bake. Quick tip here, when you rotate your sheet, be gentle because the cookies are very buttery and slippery, and they can slip and slide all over the place. So just keep that in mind and be gentle when you rotate your baking sheets. Here we go, these are the cookies straight out of the oven. You can see the jam still bubbling away over there. Beautiful. And these are delicious butter cookies. You can choose to bake them a little longer so that they are a little bit more crisp. But as they are now, they are absolutely delicious. So you can enjoy these as is, or I put a dollop of melted chocolate on here and then I put it back on the sheet and I let it completely solidify before pulling it up and enjoying. It's one way to do it. You can also sandwich a variety of fillings in between two cookies, like jam or ganache chocolate, white chocolate, whatever you'd like. Endless possibilities. So I've got a little chocolate warmer here, and all it does is it warms your chocolate to not a crazy high temperature, otherwise you will have problems with chocolate. So this is just plain chocolate chips, and I'm going to basically just match up two that are about similarly sized, put a generous dollop of chocolate in the center. You can either go ahead and press this down to get kind of this smooth bottom, less cookie, or you can gently sandwich them like that. Just kind of make sure to squeeze it out so that the chocolate reaches the outer edge. And just like that, you guys have made very versatile, very delicious butter cookies. Hope you've enjoyed this recipe. Please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more. See you guys next time. Here you can see I baked another batch and I added a bunch of different sprinkles on top. And these are sixlets, which are basically round M&Ms, for lack of a better word. So they have a candy coating and then chocolate on the inside. They don't do very well in the oven, you guys. Just giving you a heads up, they will melt and kind of ooze all over the place. But the other Jimmy sprinkles seem to have held up really, really well. So look at how cute they can look without much effort at all. Oh my god, is that food coloring? Do I have food coloring on my face? Did I have it on my face this whole time? Oh no. Oh no, I'm recording.